In this episode, I listened to the very heartbeat of the Influenzo in an attempt to get to the bottom of yet another new misfire. Then the parts start coming off and I try and solve once and for all the mysterious problem of why the Influenzo is using too much oil. Hello everybody and welcome back, and me and the Influenzo are both very happy to see you, although I have to say I've just come back from a holiday, a very rare holiday. I was in Sardinia visiting my uncle and it was just amazing, and coming back here, having to do some work on the Influenzo is a bit like coming back to school really. But anyway, let's get on with it because there's plenty to do on this car. Very brief summary. I bought it under lockdown, it's had constant problems, the two heads have been completely rebuilt, and yet once that was done, car still turned out to be burning a lot of oil, way too much oil. So obviously that pointed to the bottom end. However, recently Mick from QV came up, did some tests on it, and he thinks that actually the problem is from the top end. I still don't know what's going on, but I think the way forward is the rear bank of cylinders here, they are the ones that are oiling up the worst. So that rear head needs to come out and just be checked to make sure that there is nothing wrong there. If it proves there's nothing wrong, then obviously I'm going to have to take the whole engine out, but we'll start with that rear head. Before that, I did a video just recently on how far the Influenzo would go against an electric car on £10 worth of energy, fuel versus electric. And towards the end of that video, it just started misfiring really badly again. Now, of course, you're not supposed to run cars like this dry because in theory it sucks up all the crud from the bottom of the tank. So there is a possibility that some of that crud has made its way into the carbs, but my friend Anton, who's a really good mechanic, told me that that's a bit of a wives' tale because the pickup is above the bottom of the tank. So even if you run it quite low, the crud's always there. It shouldn't really be picking it up in particular. I'm going to start it up and then just remove the plug wires one by one until I can hear a difference in the revs, which is what I did last time when I found that broken connector, the plug extender, and then see if it's electrical, if there's something electrical going on, or anyway, if it points to whatever cylinder isn't firing properly. What we're listening out for is a change of engine tone every time I take out a plug. If the revs don't change, it means that cylinder isn't firing. Most of them seem to be working just fine, but here we go. This one doesn't seem to make any difference at all. I think it's number 7, although it says 3 on that, ignore it, that's because I changed those cam covers. So it's 7, which doesn't seem to be firing. Right everyone, well, I've removed the extender to see if that's, again, what the issue could be, and indeed, it definitely is. So, just trying to push it out from the, there we go. I don't know if you can see this, but it's totally cracked at the top and obviously leaking spark. So these extenders really are unbelievable. They've got a terrible reputation for going wrong, but they just degrade so badly and so quickly. But at least I know it's not an issue with the carbs filling up with crud, which I was quite worried about. So I think at this stage, once I've found out what it is, we can now get on with starting to take it apart. So I'm going to take that rear head off first. Now that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's the easiest head to take out because it's here, it's not tucked away like that head over there. I don't have to take the distributor out. Hopefully it will come straight out because obviously it's been apart quite recently. But the other reason why I'm taking this one off is these are by far the cylinders that seem to be oiling the worst. On the front, they actually don't seem to be oiling at all. Not that I've seen recently anyway. So I'm going to take it out and then we'll see if there's anything obviously wrong there. I've raised the Influenzo to the sort of mid-height that the Quick Jack will do. It will go higher than this, but I think to start off, this will do. There's a few things I need to do. Need to get the wheel off, wheel arch liner off to get access to everything, and then I'm going to have to get this lid off, but I need to wait for someone who can help me lift it. So I'm going to start off with the rest. Maybe also drain some of the coolant, which is an awful job in this car. Absolutely horrible. I've drained the fluid from the expansion tank just by siphoning out what was there, but the stopcock is resolutely seized, so I can't get it down from the bottom of that head, which is the lowest place, a good place to do it. So next I'm going to take this off from the expansion tank, which should drain a fair amount, and then I'm going to have to disconnect it back at that lower pipe. But as always, draining the coolant on this car, nightmare. So this is how horrible and messy it is to do it this way. Very slow at the moment, but at least it's not going absolutely everywhere. So I haven't completely drained the coolant, obviously. I've mainly drained it from the top of the engine there. There's no point draining the whole radiator and everything at this point in time. It was all changed quite recently anyway. Next stage is take off the covers, the cover for the belts, take the belt off, and then disconnect the exhaust at the bottom, and then I can move on to the top of the car. Next, let's try and release this belt. I've already lined everything up and checked, and it's definitely on TDC. So it'll help when I get it back together. Okay, so next, the top end bits that I need to take off. There's a heat shield there which will need to come off. Then the headers, the header bolts. Then obviously plugs, the airbox, at least 2 of the carbs, possibly all 4. All the oil pipes, the air vent pipes. Then I need to take off the cam cover. Finally get to the bolts, and then it should come out. The engine steady bar next, and it's nice and easy, just 1 bolt and then it can be pushed out of the way. And then take away the clips for the wiring. The end caps have to come off next. And this is the oil return to the sump. The airbox has to come out now so that I can get to the carbs and start taking those out. So breather hose needs to come off. I don't remember this being so difficult. Head cover bolts next. The exhaust manifold is off. I didn't film it because it's so cramped and hard in there. It was just too difficult. But next, I have to start taking these off, and I think at least these two carbs, then a few other bits, then this cover, and then maybe we're going to get close to it. This is the link between front and back. Ideally, I want to muck about with the linkage the least possible, but likelihood is I'll have to reset the whole thing anyway. But there we go. Oil filter comes off just to get a bit more access to these nuts at the back here. Got to those nuts a lot quicker than I did last time, and carb number 1 is out. This is the one that can be really difficult. It's that nut there. So I've already loosened these off, so hopefully the great thing is that although it's so hard to get to, once it's loose, the nut at the bottom there, it just spins out. So you can just use your finger like this now that it's loosened. So if they were stiff all the way, it would be an absolute nightmare. That does make things a lot easier, that once you crack them open, you can just spin them off by hand. This one needs... Oh, okay. Next, I'd forgotten about this coolant connector here. It has to come out as well before I can take that head off. A lot easier if the carbs weren't in the way. I should have really taken them out. So next, this cam cover, I've already freed it up because it was sort of quite stuck on there. So now, yeah, it should just ease out. The head is ready to come off now. Well everybody, the head is finally off, and as ever with the Influenzo, things are not immediately clear. If we have a look at the inlet ports, they are really clean, so there's nothing to be seen there. However, on the exhaust ports, there is clearly a lot of traces of oil. From cylinder 1, this is one of the, well, this is the best one. And you can just see there is a trace of oil there. Cylinder 2, far worse. And again, quite a bit of oil. Cylinder 3, probably worst one of all. Traces of oil there. And this is cylinder 4. And again, a lot of oil there. And at first glance, you might think that that is obviously coming from the guides because it is surrounding that. However, if there was oil burning in the bores itself, as it was being pushed out through the exhaust ports, you would still see traces of oil there. And as the guides are sort of in the airflow, it would probably catch around those. So it's not 100% clear yet whether there is a problem or not. But I'm going to find out because on Monday, so that's in a couple of days' time, I am taking it to the guys who built these heads, who rebuilt them for me. I'm going to have a look at it together and just see if we can find any problem at all. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, I do have a link, which I will put on the video description, in Patreon. Now, I'm afraid I just don't have the time at the moment to do too much in exchange, but what I have committed to do for that is every month I send out an email updating you on what is going on, stuff you don't hear about on the channel, stuff you don't see. So it's a bit more of a sort of an inside update on what's happening with number 27 and with me. Thank you all for watching. Please follow on Instagram, and if you need to contact me, that's the best way. And really look forward to seeing you for the next one and to finally finding out what is wrong with the Influenzo.